With YouTube demonetizing independent media, please consider becoming a patron today for just $1 per month. Link below. Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is 3 Buck Theater, and the Avengers Infinity War came out this weekend and brought home like some serious green. We're talking like 250 million domestic is what I'm hearing, over 600 million worldwide in its first week, and the rumored budget on this thing was around $400 million. I don't even think including print and advertising. So Disney and Marvel at this point are just counting the green. They're counting the money earned. And you know what? I'm not gonna lie, they absolutely fucking deserve to count the money. This movie is not only the best Marvel movie thus far, provided you've seen the other Marvel movies, because I kind of have to. It's one that I've seen many people so far talk about being a Best Picture contender. Now, I don't want to sit there and get it too ahead of the curve on this one and be all like, oh, I totally agree. But at the same time, part of me is like, I totally agree. I totally feel that this movie could be up for some serious awards. Or at least the recognition of being, like, you know, nominated sort of thing. And it all boils down to one factor. I'm not even kidding you. This dude, Thanos. Josh Brolin should probably get a I'm going to call it Best Actor nod for this one. Not Best Supporting, Best Actor. And the reason why I say that is because Thanos is not a side character in this movie. He is the motherfucking main character in this movie. This is not anyone else's journey other than Thanos' journey, right? This is a culmination of something he's been doing behind the scenes, but this movie was essentially all about him. And it was good, right? I mean, it was good. It was powerful. It hit you in a lot of places. There's been a lot of themes. And they talk about this in the movie too, with Thor talking about like how, you know, like his father's dead, and you know he was a god, and then Star-Lord goes, oh yeah, well my father was also a god, and I had to kill him. Like all of these kind of Shakespearean, approaches to these particular types of problems. And then you've got the story of a father and his daughter, which is ultimately what a lot of it boiled down to. We've known that Thanos' favorite was Gamora. We've known about that. We've known Nebula has a hatred for Thanos because he viewed Gamora as his favorite. We've learned these little things for the last few years, and as time has gone on, now we finally get to see them put in some aspect of proper context. But Thanos himself, his arc, his journey to get the gauntlet, was for a very interesting reason. And ultimately, and this is one that, like, and I'm not saying I agree with it, but it's understandable. You know what I mean? Like the ending of Watchmen when Dr. Manhattan's all like, you know, without condemning or condoning, I understand. Right? Like just that moment of like, I get why he wants to do this. He talks about Titan, you know, fell victim to overpopulation, to limited resources, and he wanted to find a way to stop it from happening. So he goes on this mass universe-wide genocide, this quest for that in order to allow life to start anew. Very similar to kind of what Ego is wanting to do with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Right? We're getting, you know, a very similar kind of world-ending shit here. But at the same time, Thanos was doing this not from a place of I guess you could call it, at least the way that they made it appear to me, was not from a place of devastation, of wanting to kill. He didn't want to kill. He felt he had to kill. And, going back to Guardians, they call him the Mad King Thanos, right? But we never got that Mad King. That Mad King that was hinted was never delivered. What we got was a nuanced character, a character whose motivations were understandable, whose motivations were, in some respects, sympathizable. Not saying that I agree with what happened, but his character, you could sympathize with him, especially when it came down to dealing with his children, you know, and how he did things and how he loved Gamora, and how, you know, when asked, what were you going to do at the end of this? He's like, I'll watch the sunrise and take a much needed rest. Because in his mind, he's been going after these stones for years. He's been trying to find out where they are and collect them. That's why he sent Loki to Earth with the first Avengers, with the Tesseract, in order to find the other two stones that were there and get those back. He was, you know, wanting to collect all this in order to carry out his master plan. But every time he talked, he would explain it in a way where you're like, yeah, no, like, I don't agree with anything, but like, I understand. And then never mind the scene with the Soul Stone. That was sad. right? Like, that was just that realization that he has to kill his daughter in order to get it. And she's like, oh, there's nothing you love. And he's like, no, I love you. And of course he throws her to her, he throws her, and she's like realizing at that point that this guy who kidnapped her, who took her from her family, killed her mother, essentially, cold part of this planet, did in fact love her. He actually cared about his children. He cared about those that he lost. That's that whole line he said to, I want to say it was Wanda or something. And it was like, I've lost more today than you will ever possibly imagine. Right? Like, or he says these things and you're like, I kind of get it. He had to kill his child in order to fulfill what he believed was his destiny. And at the end, he ultimately succeeded, but there was a cost. And he understood that cost. He understood that there was sacrifice that was needed. And that's one of the things I really, really found compelling about the character, was that Thanos was the driving force of this movie. Thanos was, upon reflection of seeing the movie, the character I wanted to spend the most time with. Very similar to Heath Ledger in The Joker for The Dark Knight, oddly enough, 10 years ago. Because the way that he brought about the role, the way that he approached it, the way that he wanted to complete his mission, so to speak, was conveyed to us in a way that was compelling and understandable. And like I said, you could even somewhat sympathize with what's going on. His journey, his struggle, what he believes is the right course of action. Now, there are people out there that will obviously argue that this is just, a reflection of our current times, that Thanos is in fact just nothing more than a villain in the Trump age sort of thing. And I don't want none of those politics in this crap. That's not what I'm thinking about. When I look at the concept of Thanos, I look at the idea of what they presented. This is a man who saw a major problem on his planet, and through maybe just degradation of mind, maybe just he thought about it too much. He felt this was a problem everywhere. And so he chose to seek out means of destruction. He chose to seek out means to stop overpopulation on a mass scale. Instead of going planet to planet, leaving half the population dead, he could do it all like this, which is what he wanted, which is ultimately what he did. And it's compelling. Because 10 years, 18 previous films, and we have yet to see a villain as complex as Thanos. Now, I will say that Killmonger on Black Panther comes very close, because the motivations on Killmonger do make sense on a very human level. You get what he's talking about, and I felt that to be great. But before then, the villains were cookie cutter, right? They were. I mean, as much as I loved Red Skull, his motivations were very clear. Loki was good because he kind of flip-flopped back and forth. Is he good? Is he bad? Is he good? Is he bad? And you kind of root for him either way, really, because you just liked him. But you look at like Whiplash and Iron Man 2, the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, right? Even Ego now, by comparison, it kind of feels stale compared to Thanos and Guardians 2. Yellow Jacket and Ant-Man. Who else is there? Like, the Dark Elves in Thor 2. I mean, even Thor 3 was Hela. Hela was a good one, but at the same time, still kind of just cookie cutter. Even though her motivations were to get vengeance on the fact that her father had betrayed her. And that seems to be a lot of themes that are kind of reoccurring in these films. So I have to honestly say that Thanos is definitely the best villain in the MCU. I don't know if they're going to be able to top it in the next movie. I hope they are. I hope they're able to continue making him a compelling, fascinating, interesting character, and one that you ultimately are rooting against because your favorites are going up against him, obviously, but you understand why he's doing what he's doing, and that's how you write a good, compelling villain. When you can have a villain people can not only hate, but also kind of love to hate, and then maybe even in some ways sympathize with or empathize with, it makes for these very interesting discussions to take place about the motivations and the complexities of these characters, and whether or not the events that transpired on screens were all that should have happened. It kind of transcends just a straightforward art piece. I'm not trying to say this is like an existential or an example of existential art or something. It's clearly a popcorn summer flick, but I feel that the character of Thanos is one worth diving into, worth looking into, and worth looking at. And I just found it to be very fascinating. I loved it. I really did. I thought it was great. But that's just my thoughts on this one. Curious to know what you guys have to say about this. Obviously, you could have different opinion than me, and it's totally cool. Be sure to let me know in the comments below. My name is, of course, Matt Jarbo. This has been 3 Buck Theater. If you haven't already, please thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to support it, the best way is through Patreon. Dollar helps out actually quite a bit. And or if you just want to support by watching, you can do that right now.